Hey, Teresa, how are you?
I'm good.
I'm
Good to
good.
see
Thank you
you.
for doing this LinkedIn Live with me. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure to be here. It's a long time coming. I have been wanting to do this with Hyper, so thank you for having me.
Better late than never. So, thank you all for joining today. We'll be discussing about smarter ID badges and really what that means for better identity security. And this right now, there's just a massive confluence of events happening right now in the identity industry. There's AI, there's deepfakes, there's all sorts of really fun things, AI agents, non-human identities, so many cool things happening in our industry. And so I'm really excited to talk with Teresa today about some of the problems that we're seeing and how they can be addressed, and also to share some of the really work that we've been doing together between our companies and really partnering. So I have the pleasure of working with Teresa, not just on the partnership between our companies, but also at the FIDO Alliance, where we share a board seat and are able to work together to drive that standard and industry forward. So Teresa, please introduce yourself a little bit for the audience, for those of who might not know you, and we can kick it from there.
Sure, thank you. I'm Teresa Wu. I'm the Vice President of Smart Credentials and Access Market for IDEMIA Public Security in North America. I come from a long time background in the biometric space for government and the PIV card, for those that know PIV card, the smart card space. But I also did quite a bit of work around. I was the program sponsors for all the mobile driver license for IDEMIA in North America between 2023 and 2024. So I know one thing or two about mobile driver license, and that's how I dip into the mobile credentials. But definitely, the FIDO Alliance was really eye-opening. The fact that how the authentication drive the identifications and the identification verifications. That's how I started with the FIDO Alliance also. So that's a little bit my background.
Thank you so much for joining me, and I'm looking forward to this discussion. So let's first talk about a little bit on the state of identity proofing. For the last several years, Teresa, I think many companies have kind of really hitched their wagon to this concept of, hey, if I can request my user to scan their driver's license or passport or some other government issued document using their cell phone camera or upload a picture of it and then compare that with a selfie, that is a really strong way of doing identity. And recently, with all the deepfake technologies that have been coming out and the accuracy of those, it's really shattered that belief for a lot of companies. And the majority of breaches last year were obviously related to identity. We did a survey last year of 750 IT security professionals, and it was 87% of them said they experienced a breach that was related to identity. So I'd love to get your perspective on, the state of identity proofing using documents and how you think about this problem.
So I would say there's no long. It's not silver bullet approach. Never has been, right? Security. When it comes to security, we always say it's the layer approach, and you're as strong as your weakest link, right? So you need to look at your entire security chain. So when it comes to identity proofing, I agree with you that the idea of just doing at the level of the document is no longer sufficient. While maybe in certain proofing scenario, maybe it's good enough because the risk is, it's all about me addressing risk, right? So if the risk is small, then maybe that's good enough because you just care about, the have a name and last name and somehow, some way they can assert themselves. Or you want some more assurance level, when you look at that NIST assurance level, then having you want more. So having a system record check, having some sort of cryptographic graphic proof, something a layer on top of it would be really more they make it more sufficient. So it's addressing your risk. It's really the identity proofing today. It's really not about one size fit all solution. It's really layering it to see what else you need to add to it to address to mitigate your risk. I would say that today an identity proofing, in addition to the document, if you're gonna do some sort of biometric check, mostly it's facial, then your facial one-to-one need to be added with a liveness check. It can't be just a facial check alone, right? So against the adding those, and then the other proofing platform, what we saw is they're adding other signal, then adding other way of verifying your identity, different other ways. It's quite burdensome and laborious. I kind of get scared when when one of the identity proofing vendors say, well, but we collect 96 other signal from you, from this transaction and see who you are. That's kind of scary because then you have that other exceed the excessive part of it, right? And then on the privacy, excessive part, over collecting data to verify you, and therefore you could just, for me, it's a pitfall in privacy concerns. So I think we need to have a good balance of it between having a resilient and robust process and not overly abusive on the privacy aspect of the transaction.
Yeah, I agree. And collecting a bunch of different signals on a user is really effective when you have existing signals to compare it against. But when it's a brand new person that's interacting with your company, it's much, much harder, right? And it seems like also the liveness check seems to be a game of whack-a-mole, and I think that's where we're going to get into later. When we securely issue the user a credential, how can we make sure that it's them on a day in and day out continuous basis? And how do we make sure that we are continuously verifying them?
Yeah.
Have you seen this concept around hiring people and how risky that can be for businesses these days as more and more workers continue to be remote?
Oh yes, the COVID kind of started. We thought that they're just gonna targeting some like high tech company and specialized. But I was in a conference. I was told that actually that data is that scenario, that occurrence is way more generalized than I expected. It's a growing trend that you have more and more fraudulent interviewee that interview on behalf of someone else or interview on the purpose not to get the job, but is to get in and steal your data. So I do agree that the interview fraud is getting it's more concerning. It's not a niche scenario. It's not a special case. It's definitely more generalized than I first expected. We lost your mic. I think we lost the. Oh, I'm by myself now. Okay. Hi, welcome
Okay,
back.
let's try this again.
I thought you ditched me and go ahead and
Yeah,
me do
thank you.
LinkedIn Live for HYPR by myself. What?
No, sorry about that. It's all my internet connection apparently. But yeah. Anyway, I'm completely back. So thank you for hanging in there with me.
No problem. So
Okay.
we were talking before you left. We
Yeah, I
were talking
believe we are
about.
back.
Yep.
Yeah, so we're talking about the secure hiring aspect and how just big of a problem this is for companies. I think ultimately what we were to the difference between probabilistic security and security and how one of the things that we've seen recently here at HYPR in particular is most companies, they to verify a person when they first give them a job and then never again. And there's really this concept of continuous identity verification that's becoming really critical for businesses to make sure that users are who they say they are on a day-to-day basis, on a week-to-week basis, on a year-to-year basis. So we've actually seen lots of companies move into a direction where they want to verify a person's identity, every week, every quarter, every year at the very least, or whenever they notice that they're doing something sensitive, and they're really starting to combine this with existing systems where if a user is authenticating from a strange location, they may require them to do a identity verification in line rather than just allowing them to progress, or maybe sometimes they will even end up quarantining an account until they do an investigation, whereas now they can avoid that quarantine scenario and put the user through an identity verification process in line.
I think that the balancing act is how to make this identity verification not a cumbersome process, and that's why that badge comes in. Once you have vetted the person, you strengthening that onboarding process. You issue identity credential, enterprise ID, right, for your employee, and if that badge is a flash patch, a plastic card with a picture, it's not going to serve you any good. That you strengthening the process to ensure that you hire someone. So you invest so much money to make sure that you protect your onboarding. Then I do think that the next step is to very concretely for enterprise. The smart move is to create a smart credentials, right, or smarter ID. I'm sorry, to have that cryptographic capability, to have that biometric verification capability, to make sure that you can support that identity verification down the road, instead of asking or requiring your employee to bring in their passport, their driver license, or ID document to verify themselves, right? So so that's one benefit of having a stronger credential in enterprise that's multi-purpose, and that you can really trust and verify, deterministically verify the person. It goes a very long way than keep going back to this identity verification to do .gov, to do selfie check, to do biometrics. It's cumbersome, right? People may push back on the privacy concern, but because I did it once, well, I have to do it again. So I think there's that definitely a good value proposition out there, that when you join a company, you expect to have a company ID, and if you invest in that company ID, it will go way more, a longer way, and way more in return in terms of security for the company.
Yeah, you nailed it. The smart badge that we're going to be showing here in a minute, and that we partner to provide to our customers. It is a deterministic way of authenticating a user. And the really nice thing about it is what our customers are ultimately aligned on and are looking to achieve is they want to make that baseline authentication method for their employees a deterministic authentication method. They want to make sure that it is not shareable either intentionally or unintentionally. And that's the big thing that they really care about, right? So most companies who are not using this technology, they onboard an employee and they usually give them a password and then some MFA app that has like a one-time code on it. Well, both of those things are easily shareable by that person. So that means if that individual wants to share their password and one-time code with somebody that they're outsourcing their job to, or maybe they're tricked into providing those credentials over the phone to a hacker, they can do that. With a physical credential that is on that device and cryptographically provable, it's deterministic, there's no way to share it. So when you have that as your baseline, then all these other signals and data that you're using to establish more trust on top of that are very much incremental, as long as you have that baseline of trust. And I think that's critical for companies moving forward, especially as remote work continues to dominate the industry.
Absolutely. You just said something that really caught my attention, is that we it's kind of new that the hiring, like the interview fraud, is a thing, right? People hiring, pretend to be somebody else to get the job. But what you're saying right now is it's alarming to me. You're saying the employee um, shadowing, having someone, they outsource the work privately to somebody else that may not have the, the security uh, clearance or access, or not vetted person. They just outsource to random person to do the job and access to the network. Is that what you're saying? When you say the employee
Yeah, this
outsource the
happens
work?
all the time yeah, this happens all the time. There's a subreddit that I follow called Overemployed, and it's basically a bunch of people who are on there talking about how they're working 2, 3, 4, 5 jobs at a time. And many of them are outsourcing those jobs to much cheaper workers in other part of the world, right? So they'll live in the United States, they'll get 5 different jobs at 5 different companies, and then they'll outsource their jobs to remote workers, right? And they're able to do that because right now they have a shareable credential that they can give to that other person to do that job. But if you have a non-shareable credential, which shows that you have to have physical access to a specific credential in order to access systems on a regular basis, then it really makes that type of fraud extremely difficult to do.
Totally. Wow. You just, I learned something today. It is a thing. Okay. Wow. Yeah, I mean, the threat is everywhere. I think that's the external threat, the phishing attack coming in, and that's inside the threat, or inside the threat because you don't have a robust onboarding process. So so we have this element to deal with. So I mean, again, enterprise security is multi-level. So creating, like you said, that baseline is important. Investing in strengthening that baseline will help dealing with other threat um, more resilient. I think it's this the term I would take away for sure. Well, thank you for sharing that. Wow.
Yeah, thank you for listening to me ramble. One of the great things that we've done together is our companies have partnered together to provide our customers with your smart credential, and where HYPR is the layer that helps our customers manage those credentials. So do the enrollment and management on a day-to-day. And one of the areas that I'm really excited about is this convergence between physical and digital. How have you seen this be really helpful to companies that you work with and our mutual customers?
So I would say that the having a converge, like a credential that can do convergence, security convergence. Now they have a concrete project where you have one ID badge or a card that drive both the cyber digital security and physical security together, where they can both have two teams talking together on a very concrete project, and get to see that, well, yeah, first is security and security, but they have something in common they can collaborate on. And I do think that at the end it's a better employee experience. So instead of having an employee having, I mean, I have heard this horror story, like some customer, they have like 3 different badges or token to get somewhere. So they have one badge for the building, one badge for this office, one badge for this data center, because the access control system is different. And then they have another token, or why not, that have to go to the network, right? And then maybe they have to remember their password. So they have this like bunch of things they have to handle and manage to do it. And so it's duplicate costs. It's a more cumbersome process for the employee, versus when you have one badge to rule it all in a way. Like it's one single, it's related to you, it's on you, it's with you, and you must use it to navigate the landscape. It's way easier. And I think what I think people are not seeing is that there's this notion of mobile credentials, right? Having a digital twin, a mobile twin of your access of your badge. And if you have so many other badges, then how you can really deploy a digital twin strategy on it. So I see more and more organizations start thinking, like when you forward looking, how that enterprise access should look like. And there's more and more this like, I want a multi-purpose credentials to do all that and not dealing with all these silos.
I was recently speaking with a identity leader at a large financial company, and they have a back to office type of policy where they're trying to get employees to come to the office more and not work from home so much, and they have a requirement for people to be in the office a certain amount of days per week. And this is a beautiful story of like the convergence between digital and physical, and having a digital credential also on your phone. So one of the problems that they were facing was this concept of coffee tapping, which is an employee would show up to the office at 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. They would tap into the office building. They would go inside, grab a cup of coffee, walk out, get in their car, drive home, and work from home the rest of the day. And they had this problem where like, we actually need people in the office for whatever reason. And so what they decide, what they're doing is they're able to utilize the physical credential that the employee has, and they're able to use the additional signals that they get from products like HYPR, where they can then say, okay, not only do you have to be physically present in this building, but in order to access your work computer, you also need to be in that building. And because we look at the location and similar signals around that for that specific to that environment, so that if an employee just comes to the office, taps into the building, and goes to work from home, they won't actually be able to log into their computer if they do that. So this is the really beautiful part about like converging physical and digital from an identity perspective, where organizations can ensure the level of security and compliance that they want and need, but at the same time provide a really great user experience for that end user.
You just said exactly what the zero trust want. Like you look at the zero trust principle, that's exactly that, right? You just enable one of the like holy grail of what zero trust meant to do. You need to do endpoint security. You want to make sure who have access, when to have access, and where to have access, right? The where, that's where your platform is enabling, is that you can't really have access to your data anywhere you want anymore. It's only on a certain framework. Definitely it's a beautiful enablement that you just described. And I always said it is like zero trust is not just a buzzword. Zero trust is a strategy that we need to implement, but to implement it, because of buzzword, people say, oh, can be anything. And the smart, a multi-purpose cryptographically secure badge that can enable physical access control and logical access control, it's a very real thing that every company can do to step towards that zero trust ultimate, like that goal, to make sure that you are protecting your assets, your access, and your infrastructure.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the work that we're doing together, and I think the industry is making really good progress. I think as zero trust continues to gain more traction in the industry, I think it's been getting a lot of momentum, but I think the identity portion of zero trust is still something that lots of businesses are struggling to figure out. But I think having these combined solutions like this, and the partnerships and these really strong proof points of large organizations actually doing this, not just talking about it, is really going to make a big difference to the industry.
Oh, I hear you. I definitely see more company want to be at the actions than just want to learn about it, for sure. And the beauty of it, when you talk about the beautiful things, let's finish another beautiful things, right? What we said here is standard based, right? What HYPR is implementing with the FIDO protocol and process, or what the smart credentials, the IDEMIA buildings, it's all known standard. From the PIV, from the FIDO, or from the DESFire, EV3 Leaf standard for physical access control, all those are standardized So you have the inherent interoperable solution that can work with each other. Um, and in my opinion, it's like we don't have to, like, we're not reinventing the wheel, but this partnership is showing that you have the right players together. We can enable a solution that can go way far more with greater return.
Yeah, I agree. I think nothing happens in identity without a standard behind it. I think identity is such a critical part of any sort of business that, having that interoperability and ability to switch providers if you're not happy with one because of what the open standard in the interoperability provides. I think that's critical for business continuity and planning and risk mitigation. So I think, I'm really excited and glad that IDEMIA is partnering with FIDO Alliance and really implementing the standards the way that they should be implemented. And ultimately, that's going to help us drive the industry forward. So, Teresa, thank you so much for joining me today. And we overcame together some brief technical issues, but it would not be a webinar if at least one thing didn't go a little bit wrong. But I'm really glad we had a chance to do this. I'm looking forward to seeing you next week at RSA, and many of you who are listening, hopefully you're out there, say hello to us. And if you have any questions about this partnership, these smart credentials, how they can be leveraged together, reach out to myself or Teresa anytime, and we'll make sure that we can provide you additional context, information, or help anytime.
Yes, if I can't catch you at RSA, hope to catch you at Identiverse, right? So we have plenty of other occasions
Yes.
to chit chat. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you.